Good morrow, godlings. I hope this finds you well. I have my electronic aquarium on the TV here. It's not really an aquarium, it's delightful to look at. And off that way behind me, the saltwater tank I'm working on. My distiller only distills a gallon at a time, and it takes a little over an hour or two. I don't know. I'm only getting about 5 gallons in it a day at this rate. Anyway, it's coming along slowly but surely. I have a few things I want to speak with you about today. I watch a whole lot of YouTube looking for what's actually nourishing for us all out there. And I need you to understand that the most important thing you can do, the thing you need, is lucidity. You need that more than you need any information. The information that you most need then is how to attain lucidity. Lucidity is work, but it is literally the only way out of suffering. And it's your fire. And you can practice it, and you can provoke it until you have a shift in identification as a result of it, and abide in that state of lucidity. In the meantime, everything else is distraction. Only a lucid dreamer can change the dream. And so actually, your freedom, your salvation from suffering, your lucidity is so close to you, so imminent all the time from your first appearance here, that you have to be bombarded, overwhelmed with sensory data that says you're in trouble or about to be in trouble over and over again in order to keep you focused out there on a world that isn't there at all. So the world is actually in resistance to your lucidity. It is a challenge to your lucidity until you do one crucial thing, and that is learn to make any suffering or discomfort whatsoever a trigger for your lucidity. Now, by this I mean anytime you're suffering, frightened, angry, discomforted in any way at all, use it as a signal that you need to do the practice. And the practice is going into the emotion, feeling it, asking, what am I saying to myself in this emotion? What is this all about? Put it into words, really distill it down. Once you've got it put into words, and you'll know when you've gotten it right, it'll feel right, you'll know. If you have to ask, you haven't got it quite yet. But you'll know, and the very first thing that usually happens is that you recognize very suddenly that it's ridiculous. It's not true most of the time. Whatever it is, whatever belief, lie in the middle of the word belief, whatever belief you're telling yourself, unconsciously, that is, you haven't observed it before until now, whatever belief you're telling yourself is not serving you. It's either 100% untrue or only has nuances of possible truth to it, depending upon the perceptual angle you take. And either way, it's just not serving you. It's not serving your bliss. It is not making you more functional in the world. It's causing you to suffer because you are giving power to that belief by your belief in the belief. Your mind is made up, it's a theory of everything. We're model building creatures. So we all build our own unconsciously, usually. We don't observe ourselves in the process of building it. Unconsciously developed mind. And a mind is a system of self-statements, beliefs that basically we have inferred from things that have occurred in our time stream. That's what you get when. Oh, well, that's the way it turns out when. And this is why this person did or said this sort of thing. And this is what motivates humanity. This is why, this is why, this is why. And so we use this this theory of everything, we feed it to the squishy-ware of the brain, for the brain to use in order to search for pleasure and sustenance and avoid suffering and loss. So we've given our unconscious allegiance to this system of self-talk. And a lot of times it's not true, and even more of the time it's simply not serving us, even though it may be shades of truth to it, depending upon what perceptual angle you take on the situation. It's certainly not wholly true. It is not true from every angle at all times in all spheres of existence or reference. So once you do this practice and you have truly seen, as consciousness itself, conscious of itself, that belief you were telling yourself was not true and that got all of its power from you, you can usually feel the power come right back to you because you withdraw your endorsement from that belief. And that brings the power back to you. And suddenly you're free of that thing. That concept, that self-talk, no longer has any power to affect your subjective experience. This is lucidity, abiding in this constant presence in the situation, dealing with the world, but not being unconsciously rocked by not the world itself, but by what you're saying to yourself about it, which you are not observing, you're unconscious of, and therefore you do not see it, stealing your bliss, your peace, attacking your peace, and robbing you of vital energy with which you could transform the situation if you weren't being so encumbered. So in this lucidity, you start taking back your power from everything, and it happens one thing at a time, and you recognize something's got part of your power because it happens that it triggers some beliefs, some self-talk in you that makes you miserable and encumbers your functioning. So instead of just suffering and identifying with the suffering, the transformation you make consciously is to choose to remember that every time you're suffering or uncomfortable in any way, it's because you have given the power through your beliefs, your self-talk, to the situation to upset you. And you can take it back. So you use discomfiture instead of falling into the dream of it, oh, woe is me, and just allowing it to be filling up your experience, how you're terribly trod upon, etc. You use it to wake you up lucid, and you instigate the practice right away of disassembling the emotion that you're having, putting it into words and reclaiming your power when you see the belief you've been unconsciously saying to yourself, hidden in those emotions, was not true and not serving you. And this is lucidity. This is the most important thing you can do. Nothing else is really important until you get this. Once you get this, then extraneous information like when the ETs are coming, all of that might become interesting and useful in planning how to shift across the probabilities and the time streams playing out as your life, because in lucidity you discover you have the ability to wield your will and your attention and morph your experience, actually cause things in the environment to change in the way you expect and direct them to. It's a growing phenomenon. It doesn't happen all at once, not usually. If it did, it would scare you right back into withdrawing from it. So you build into the experience of your godly estate a little bit at a time. We all need this ability now because most of us are loving people who would use this ability found and honed to skill, from talent to reliably employable skill. Most people would use it to envision together better outcomes than what we're experiencing now. So I wanted to talk to you about that. All of that sounds like a lot of work, I'm sure, but regardless, you're going to have to do it anyway. That's what you came here to learn to do. And the environment will intensify, making you more and more uncomfortable until you're cornered into doing it. However the story of your life plays out, that you're forced to do that. For me, it was Lexapro withdrawals. I was cornered into having to do the work of staying extremely lucid and present for 9 months as my body urged me constantly, like it says roll over in bed or feed me. It was urging me constantly to end the suffering by ending its life, ending the body's life. So 9 months of that and all sorts of unpleasant symptoms of the withdrawals of that medication made me extremely lucid. And I was put on Lexapro, in fact, because of the first administration of the individual we're working with again now. The situation re-stimulated PTSD from having been sexually assaulted numerous times in my life, and I had still told myself that most of the men in this country were good, and yet half of them voted for a rapist. So that kind of freaked out the PTSD, re-stimulated it, and I ended up on, with chronic anxiety attacks, Lexapro. And then, of course, after a few years on Lexapro during the Biden administration, I went through the withdrawals, and it was the most difficult thing I've ever done alone in my life. And it was the most blessed thing, too, because it set me free. So now, just all these things that happen that would normally set off PTSD don't do that anymore. It's all decoupled from my experience, all those beliefs that are PTSD, the model, the things you're saying to yourself when you fall into the dream of identification as a victim. You fall into that PTSD and experience instead of being the observer of it. That's all very understandable, but getting out of it conquering it requires you become its observer and its prosecutor of a sort, where you prosecute the self-talk that is holding you hostage to fear of expectations of things going badly again. So you have to stop trying to find a magic bullet that someone can give you that will make it all easy for you after that. This is it. I'm giving it to you right now. This is how you instigate your own enlightenment. Use suffering. Mine it for the lucidity that you're being inspired by the discomfort to move into. Use it every time you're discomforted. Go, aha, I need to work on my lucidity. There's power here to be reclaimed. Power I'm unconsciously giving to the situation through my self-talk, and I can reclaim it, and it will brighten my lucidity and make me more and more unflappable in the dream of the world, and in fact, more and more able to have outcomes that I want rather than those that I do not. And I don't suffer as they materialize, fretting over outcomes I do not want. So stop trying to avoid doing that work. It's the only way, and it's what you're here to learn to do, and you will learn to do it. So just do it. You know, that's your choice. Are you going to continue to play the game in the world and hobble yourself because you don't have the tools to live consciously in your lucidity, or are you going to continue in the dream of the world lucidly? It's that or end yourself. Make up your mind and do the most heroic thing you can muster at the time. So the next most important thing you can do before or after you develop lucidity is to establish direct knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel or your higher self, your holy guide, your holy angel, whatever you want to call it. It is your higher self. And it loves you fiercely, and it has always been with you, and it will speak to you not usually in words, usually it's in metaphor, in memories, in little images, little movies will play in your mind, things that are about to unfold. If you're giving at least half of your attention, which is your godly mojo, it is your creative energy, if you're giving half of your attention at least to what's going on inside of you, you will find there is a lot of inner input. And the one that tastes like love and always says peace and always says forgive and always counsels joy, that's the one you want to pay attention to. That's the one you want to listen for. Because if you are suffering, that guide will tell you you've made a mistake about the way you're judging the situation. That guide will say none of this suffering is required of you. And in fact, Michael has been for a few days now saying to me, we have the idea that feeling equals suffering, that the tithe of having sentience at all, the tithe of enjoying our capacity for joyousness, for being in the flow, for love, okay? The tithe of that is suffering, that's the bill you have to pay. And that is not true at all. I recognize that is a bit of life. We tell ourselves feeling equals suffering. It's not true. You can be lucid and avoid almost all actual suffering. Suffering is losing lucidity in the dream of the world, falling into identification with some self-talk, some story that you're unconsciously, meaning you don't observe yourself doing it, telling yourself, and it's making you miserable. All right? And if you watch the story play out and stop falling into it, but merely watching it, becoming its observer, you'll start to laugh, actually, at the antics of your mind, the things that used to upset you, because you've forgotten you built your mind that runs those sad stories, that runs those stories of defeat. You built it unconsciously. You didn't observe yourself choosing that self-talk, integrating it into your mind. You didn't observe yourself doing that, and so you have forgotten you have the power to change all of it from one second to the next. Okay? Now, certainly you have to have a rudder in all of this changeability. You have principles that you choose lucidly to stand by, principles on which you want to build, the principle of what effect you want to have in the world. Do you want to affect other people's subjective experience so that they are empowered, or do you want them following you? Do you want them following you, or do you want to give them information that makes them powerful? I'm trying to give you information that makes you powerful. In order to take it, you must also claim your own responsibility over what you are creating for yourself and others. What are you adding to the field in which we are all electromagnetically interacting? What are you adding to the field? What's your contribution, lover? You come into this communion. What is your heart's deepest desire to give to us? Live that way. Come into the world's field as a lover, bringing to the world your kindest self, your best self. And do it every chance you get. And you're going to make mistakes. We all do. God knows I do. Please don't think that I get this exactly right. I don't. But I use the missteps. I use the discomfiture to make me more lucid. It is my alert, my alarm, my gong in the night saying, hey, pay attention. You just fell into identification with something less than the magnificently godly creature that God created you. Perfect. I've been dead. I was perfect as soon as everything the world had taught me to think of myself fell away. I The I that remained was, am perfect, and so are you. Problem is, you are sleeping without lucidity and identification with a character you think yourself to be. And you are not that. You are the observer, the dreamer of that character. So you need to establish your communion with the holy guardian angel, the higher self, which is you, actually. The dreaming, the sleeping you, that is trying to remind you that you are really that higher self. It's like when you're having a lucid dream. In this dream, in your sleep, you're having a lucid dream, and you remember you have another life and another self that you play. But there's the continuity of the experience of the true self. That never changes. That is the observer. Never changes. I've been acquainted with the observer since I was a little child, the me that I truly am. Quietly observing it all. And sometimes watching the character fall into identification with sad and unhappy and angry stories. Stories of disempowerment. Okay, I think you're getting that, so let's move on. You need to establish communion with your holy guide, and he speaks to you or she speaks to you inwardly, in metaphor, images, sometimes songs that you can't get to stop playing in your head. If you'll examine the lyrics of those songs, it is your holy guide. It has something to do with what you're going through. And it is your guide trying to communicate with you through your own memories. This is also the way people whose bodies have fallen off, aka the dead, talk to us. They talk to us using our own memories, particularly joint memories, things that we experience together in life. Anyway, you have to turn more attention in there, because that guide will save you a lot of time by questioning you in ways that make you understand at a higher level, because it's always about asking the right questions. And as long as you're asking questions that you construct for yourself from within the faulty model you have built, you're only going to get answers that appertain to the faulty model from within which you constructed the question. So the guide can give you a question that doesn't hit the bullseye. It hits another bullseye on a target a little further out, a little further back, bigger, and it hits that target and directs your attention outside of the paradigm you've constructed for yourself in an aha moment. That is what your guide will do for you. Okay, so you need to work on that, and the first thing you do is tell the guide, I may not have been as responsive as I'd like, because the guide slows down its input the less you listen. And the more you listen, the stronger and the more discernible and the more active the guide becomes, because you're being responsive. So ask the guide. Say, I may not have been responsive as I should have been in the past, could have been, I'm working on that now. Okay? Ask for that input. I want your input. And then start devoting more of your attention, your godly mojo, to what's going on inside, because the guide will start talking to you right away in subtle thoughts that whisper through your mind very quickly, and you have to run them down. The guide will never usurp your will, because it loves you perfectly. You have to listen closely and ask for their input. That's how, one of the ways they avoid usurping your will. I want to talk to you about something that you learn to do. Physical pain is another great teacher. Suffering of any sort is a great emancipator if you'll use it as such, and that's what it's meant to be used for. Michael, my guide, does not allow wasted suffering. If you're going to suffer, use it for your lucidity. So pain, which I deal with, it's just, to me, it has become like loud data. It's just loud data in my nervous system. I imagine my nerves singing, okay, operatically when I'm in pain. I take my attention away from the pain so that it is no longer a fire consuming my attention, but instead my attention is on something lovely that I'm focused on creating and manifesting as an experience for myself, and the pain becomes like the echo in the distance of a frog pond after a heavy rain. It's far away and in the background. Or like the trains have become for me here. There's a lot of trains where I live now, and I barely hear them. They're just part of the background noise. They actually mark the space-time of my tenure here, and it's kind of a lovely anchoring, you know? Anyway, so one of the things that I do, learn to cast your attention. You have to do this anyway for lucidity. You have to construct your own consciously chosen self-talk that is empowering and comforting and functional in the world. So one of the things that I do is for physical pain, I put my attention on it, and I don't know where I learned to do this, but I first began, well, I guess Michael taught me, but he just started doing it through my body. And that's key. You want to get more and more as the Grail, give the Grail that you are back to your higher self. That's how lucidity grows. The higher self is awake in you. So one of the things I started doing was taking deep breaths when I was in a lot of pain, and then pushing the breath locked inside with a slight clamp down on the breath, like I'm trying to force it into my bloodstream. And then I'd take my attention into the pain and drag the breath with the attention into the pain and dissolve it from the inside. Then when I exhaled, some of the pain went out on the breath, and I would do this over and over again, and the pain would get less and less as I pushed chi, prana, into it. Didn't know what I was doing at the time, hadn't studied it, nobody taught me about it. It was just a spontaneous thing. I can put my breath in this with my attention and alleviate the pain. So I'm not really, in that case, ignoring the pain, but I'm not absorbing into it and falling into identification with some sad story or freaked out story I'm telling myself about the pain either. It's just loud data, okay? Another thing that I have found that I can do since, and I don't even have to use the breath, is I can literally take my attention and push the pain outside my body. Push it out of the meat of my body into the etheric field. I don't know why it's working or how it's working. I just know that I put my attention on the discomfiture like a thumb, my attention like a thumb, you know, kind of blunted, but it's strong, the thumb, and I just push the pain mentally. It's not mentally, it's with my will and my attention. I push the pain out of my body. That's a new technique. Lastly, I've learned, this is the latest stage of this, is to put my attention briefly on a pain and tell the pain corrected and dissolved. And the pain diminishes. And I may do it again and again over a few minutes' time. And it goes away, corrected. I acknowledge you, pain. I'm correcting you. You're corrected. Dissolved. It's magic. And it's a magic that I have taught myself to trust that I can do with my will and my attention because I've been practicing lucidity. So ask me, what good does lucidity and a manifestation do? When manifesting, you can actually use to cause an event cascade to play out the way you want it to by manifesting it that way, even in just the instant before it happens. And start with mundane things, like instead of calling the county or the city and thinking, oh, this is going to be hell, or Social Security is going to be hell, it always is, you think, this is going to go perfectly. I'm going to find a really helpful person to talk to. They're going to be very knowledgeable. They're going to give me exactly the information I need and assist me, and I'm going to get this handled. you are much more likely going into an interaction with that frame of mind to realize that outcome than you are if you go into it thinking it's going to be hell. You really must claim responsibility and take power over what you do with your mind, what you do with your imagination. Where you put your attention is how you are spending your godly creative energy. It is this simple, people. There's nothing complicated. Take this and use it, run with it, and you'll find out everything else that people are selling you out there is nothing. And it's yeah, sure, it's entertainment, or it's even good information. It's helpful information and causing event cascades forewarned is forearmed, after all, causing event cascades to play out the way that would work better for you and for humanity and the earth as a whole. Sure, it's all good, but it's not what sets you free to be your most functional in doing that. All of the energy you reclaim from unconsciously creating what you dread goes directed into consciously creating what you will instead. This is it, okay? This is the thing you need. Master this. Master conversation and knowledge of your holy guide. And you don't need any other teachers. Then we can all just talk about the cool other stuff that lots of people are talking about now. I keep pulling you back to this and saying, this is the thing. This is what you need. Once you've built faith in that and experienced over and over again your ability to affect outcomes by your will and how you use your attention and expectation, you find out that you can use it to push pain right out of your body, to say to pain, illness, corrected and dissolved. And then manifest to yourself the sensation of being as you will to be. Prosperous, joyous, empowered, well-rested, positive, unflappable, unstoppable. So one of the things that helps in this is being much more careful about what you allow into your mind space to set off, to trigger all sorts of stories, gibberish that you have fed to your brain, part of your mind, sub-programs of when danger, it looks like this, watch out, it can look like that, and it can look like that. And all of that getting triggered by the news these days is one of the things we need to either use to make you lucid, go in there to using it to make you lucid, read their scary headlines, all right? Use it to make you lucid, not angry, not horrified. Use it to make you lucid. Okay, but the reason they're doing what they're doing now, it used to be that you would get just no editorializing, no hyperbole. You just had the news, you got the data. You were expected to make your own conclusions from that. Well, media is not like that anymore. They've found out that scared, angry people check the news more, and so they couch everything in the most scary, anger-producing terms that they can reasonably, in any sense of the word, apply. They pick those because they found out that you'll check the news more often when you're scared or angry, which allows them to sell their ad space, their time, more lucratively, higher cost per minute, per second. All right? And besides that, the more freaked out you are, the less likely it is that you're going to have a sudden intrusion of lucidity. I'm telling you, please use all of this provocation to make you more lucid. Do the practice. I described it earlier. The practice. What am I saying to myself in these emotions? Is it true? Is it serving me? And then take back your power. Scary story by scary story. Anger producing story after anger producing story. Do them one by one. You get well acquainted with the doer. The real you. Consciousness. Who has the power to choose what to dream in the dream of the world. Only a lucid dreamer can change the dream. The trick is to become lucid. The point, the objective, is to become lucid in a very lucidity adversarial environment so that you can exercise your godly estate, demonstrating you can be trusted with your own inheritance of power, thereby ushering in the last and greatest dream, the dream of awakening, the Christification of Earth Venue, its restoration, the new world. So be it. I am, and so are you. Not the story you, not that little I.